Hi, if you are creating your own website or having someone else create it for you, this video is exactly what you need. So this is a rundown of mistakes that I have seen on websites that have already been published by other people. Some done by a designer or developer that might be a bit of a startup, and others just have been overlooked, and others are from do-it-yourself kind of solopreneurs, which hats off to you because it is extremely hard to be a solopreneur. But these are just mistakes that I have seen all over the web and have fixed for other clients. And please run through them, double check your website, and make sure you're not doing them because they are really annoying when I go run through it and see it. And it could also be affecting the way that you turn those site visitors into leads, into raving fans, and ultimately into making money, because the website should make you money. That's its purpose. It's not just as a check off of I have a website, I am now a business. Before we get started though, a little bit about me. My name is Yasmin Robles with Robles Designs, where we create jewel-worthy websites and brands for entrepreneurs who are hell-bent on taking over the world. We do this not just by creating pretty sites, but we also put a thought process into the way it's organized and trying to make sure that these mistakes are not made on your site so that you can also use your site to grow your business. We also provide trainings. We have a course on building your own website. And we do have a freebie if you are so inclined. It is at roblesdesigns.com/checklist. It is something similar to this video. There are some differences in the checklist of what I added and what I didn't add. So for example, the checklist runs through things like, did you add a meta description? Did you add a title tag? So you can download that at roblesdesigns.com/checklist. Now let's get started with the top mistakes that people typically make on their website. The first mistake is that you have no brand at all. And I mean visual branding. There's also like the voice of the brand and the copy and all of that. But when I speak to branding, I'm speaking more towards the visual aspects of branding. So these are colors, how the images interact with each other, are they cohesive, the fonts chosen, the logo, all of this. Now, I don't want you to freak out and think, oh great, now I have to go hire a branding designer in order to get the logo and everything going. The simplest way you can do this is by at least knowing the fonts that you're going to be using and the color codes. Even if you don't have a logo yet, you can still make your website look really cohesive if you know the exact fonts and the color codes and know their purpose. So for example, you have a really beautiful script font. Well, that script font might not look really great when it is small, but it would be great for headlines or just to pop into certain words when you want to make an emphasis on something. That's how you will organize it in your mind or post it or wherever it is that you have it in your office or notebook. But you're going to say this font is for this purpose and all of my other text is going to be this other font. Same thing with colors. So let's say you have a teal and an orange, and your orange is going to be what draws the most attention. So you're going to use the teal probably as a background color, as an accent, as a link color, and the orange is going to be throughout your website as all of your buttons, because you want people to subtly associate that orange with some kind of call to action. So again, we're just talking fonts and colors. You don't need to have the whole brand figured out, the visual brand, but you should have an idea before you jump in, because I'll tell you now, it is extremely hard to go back into a website that has been around for a while when it is not at all cohesive and go into every single element and change it to the correct orange or to the correct pink, versus just choosing a random pink that might not match the other. Make sure your images are cohesive. So if they're light and airy, that they are all light and airy. If they are moody kind of images, that they are all, again, consistent with that moody feeling. The second mistake that I see people creating on their website is that there is just too much going on. And this is more so along the lines of a lot of call to action buttons that are all different. You're shouting out about all of these freebies that you have and all of these services that you have. And as a user, I have no idea what to click on. There's just way too much going on. You might also say, oh, well, I have like 6 colors in my color scheme, so I'm going to use all of them. And it ends up looking like when kids go into daycare and they bring you back home a picture and they used all the the colors of all the markers that they could find, and you don't even know what's happening in the picture. That's what could happen with your websites. Make sure to pare down and understand exactly what do I want the user to do when they are on this website, on this page, in this section of the page, and strip away anything else that might be distracting. So if you see that your website is looking like a circus, then make sure you start paring things down so that the messaging is really what's getting across, and it just doesn't look visually cluttered. The next mistake, no call to action at all. So this is kind of the opposite of the too much going on, where there's too much going on. But this one, you might not even have a button. So you might have a great font, a great branding, you might have great copy, but then there's no button for me to click on, there's no action for me to take. It's just awkward, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing next as a user. You want to make sure that you have a call to action on at least every page, whether that is to your freebie, or if that page is more about speaking to your services, maybe to a discovery call, but make sure that there's something for them to do. I did have someone reach out once. They're really great people, but she said there's people coming to this landing page. It's an important landing page, but they're not taking any action. They're just leaving the page. And I went in there to look. They weren't taking any action because there was no call to action, right? There was just text, and it was great copy, but then what else was I supposed to do? There was nothing for me to click on, nothing. And so once we added that button in there, people magically started, more was happening. People were actually clicking the button, contacting, and booking her services, because now they had something to do. So make sure you have a call to action at least on every page, and also Google likes it when you link throughout your own website. So keep that in mind. Ugly images or clip art or stock images that just look very awkward are another big no-no. And this one, I can't really blame people, because I understand that some of you might not be in the design industry or even really have a design eye. I have seen websites where they're still using clip art like from the 90s or early 2000s, and the kind that you would get on like Word, Microsoft Word. They are still using those on their site. That's a no. They're using blurry images. That's another no. They're using these awkward stock photos. So right now you can probably go on something like pexels.com and get really beautiful free stock photos, but they're sometimes choosing to use these awkwardly posed stock images so if you, for example, are a business owner and talking about strategy, you have this awkward lady pointing at a random chart, and versus going out there and finding maybe like a team meeting or something that looks a little bit more natural to display on your website. So make sure that your images are not blurry, that they are not clip art, they don't look like they're from like the 2000s, early 2000s, that they look natural, so that if it is a person, that it doesn't look so obvious that it's a stock photo. So if you're speaking to a team meeting in the copy, it could literally be a stock photo of a team meeting, but it doesn't look super awkward. No ugly images, please, on your website. Go through it. Make sure you get someone else's point of view when you're presenting them their website. And look for images, even if they are stock photos. I totally get it. You might not have enough for a brand photo shoot, but make sure that people look natural in it, that they don't look awkwardly posed. Hiding the navigation. So the only time when I will hide completely the navigation is for landing pages, and these are pages where I do not want the user to leave at all or to be given like the shiny object syndrome. So for example, if you are on Instagram, which I am, so follow me on Instagram at Robles Design Studio. If you are on Instagram and you are promoting your big sale, you want to send them to a particular page, and if that page has a top navigation and a footer navigation, it might cause them to leave the page, and then they will drop off and forget about what they were doing originally. So what I would do for launches is either code out or depending on the platform you're on, sometimes it's just a button. You take out the top navigation, so the header navigation and the footer navigation. And so that makes the user stuck on that page, and make sure there's a call to action on that page so they can sign up for whatever it is that you are offering. Not all these pages need that. So most of the pages that you create will definitely have a header and a footer. So top navigation and bottom navigation. Please don't hide those. Don't make it super hard to find. Even on desktop, I've seen some websites that have like the mobile symbol, the hamburger, we call it a hamburger symbol, the mobile 3 lines symbol or whatever on desktop. And that's still very confusing for certain generations. So think about your audience when you're thinking about how your header, how your navigation will look. And if you think that your audience will get very confused about where it is, make sure that you do not hide it. Just have it up there. On the note about navigation, you want to make sure your navigation is not at all confusing. And this means going back to your goals for your website. So you want to make sure that you have a goal set up. So if the goal is to get more service-based clients, then you need to have your services on your navigation, whether it is services and then a drop down, or maybe if you just have 2, then maybe just the 2 services up there. But you want to make sure that it is easy to get to on the navigation. And then you don't want to clutter it. So I still see websites where they have a more tab and then like this giant drop down of like all the miscellaneous things like FAQs, privacy policy, all these things. They might offer all like 10 different services, but they don't know what their bread and butter services are. So they just like the drop down has a million of them, or they put them all over the header. And so the header is like literally 2 lines or more. You do not want to do that. What you want to do is say, what is my focus? If the user only had a couple choices, like the 5 choices, what choices would they want to make on that top navigation? And then how can I pare down my drop down? Anything else will go into the footer navigation, so at the bottom of the page. Things like FAQs, privacy policy, all that stuff can go down there. And at the top, you should really have the main items. So home, about, contact, maybe services. If you're an e-commerce business, you do not want those. What you want are your categories. So like tops, dresses, bottoms, accessories, and sale, right? So make sure what is the goal of the user. Make sure you know that. And then make sure that you are displaying it properly on the navigation and not confusing the heck out of people. And please do not have the miscellaneous or more tab that is similar to what we have in our kitchen, which is like a hodgepodge, that miscellaneous drawer where we just put anything we have no idea where to put. Do not have that on your navigation. Before we keep going, make sure to leave a comment if you have made any of these mistakes and how you fixed them. And if they helped with the user flow of the website, I would really love to know. Or if there's anything that we're missing, make sure to leave it in the comments and I will get to it. Also, if you are so inclined, please go check out the checklist, robodesigns.com/checklist, and make sure to compare it to your website so that you can rest easy at night knowing that your website's on the right track. All right, so the next one is not having any contact information at all. You would be surprised, I was really surprised, at how many websites out there do not have contact information. Usually they are e-commerce, but sometimes they are service-based businesses. These people, I've seen websites where it was like a really great sounding VA, but she did not have a contact page. And there were no links to get on her calendar. But I was trying to ask a question and there was no contact page at all. I couldn't find it on her site. And it was just really frustrating because I was like, I really wanted to work with you, but I have no idea how to get in touch. A couple places where you could add contact information is in the footer on an actual contact page, which most people will look for on your website. And if it's not on the top navigation, it could be in the footer navigation, so a link to the contact page. And if you are developing a one-page website, usually it's towards the bottom of that one pager, but you will still want to do an anchor link or use an anchor link at the top navigation to push it down to that bottom area where the contact form is. Please use a contact form and also show the email if you so wish. Sometimes people do not want to show the email due to spammers, but you should at least have the contact form there so that people can get a hold of you, test it out, make sure it works. Pop-ups, they are great to have on your website. They convert pretty well, but do not have annoying pop-ups. So this is such a pet peeve of mine, where I will land on a website and immediately, I haven't even read anything about your article, I haven't even looked at your products, and immediately there's a pop-up in my face. If I have never been on this site before, I'm not gonna even read what's on the pop-up. I'm gonna exit out, and that's it. Right? I'm not even gonna sign up for anything because it's just annoying. It's in my way. I was trying to read an article that you wrote, or I was trying to look at a product. I was not trying to sign up for another email list. With pop-ups, best practices, and there are other videos out there that I've created, but you want to make sure that they are either on a timer, they are on a percentage of scroll on the page, and please, if I've already exited out of the pop-up, do not show it to me on every single page as soon as the page loads. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. The only reason I ordered from an e-commerce company that was doing this was because my friend was an affiliate and I wanted to help her out, and I also needed a product similar to that, and I thought, well, this is great. I'm just going to go in there and choose this water bottle that's supposed to be awesome and use her affiliate link. Well, every time I would change pages, because I wanted to make sure that the water bottle I was getting was the one I really wanted in the color I really wanted. So I would change between pages, and that pop-up would always come up, and it would come up immediately. It wouldn't even let me look at the content. And so the only reason I struggled through that was because I knew the person who was an affiliate. Otherwise, I would not have purchased. Take a look at your pop-ups. Make sure that they are not annoying, because it is, and make sure that if I've clicked as a user, I've clicked out of it, to not show it to me again you can set this up for a week, a month, whatever many days you need. And then when I come back to it, maybe I'll see it again. But again, make sure no annoying pop-ups. The next mistake that I see people make is not enough white space, and especially between different sections or thoughts on a website. Let's think of a homepage, right? A homepage will be a summary of all these awesome things that you do. So it might have a summary of your about leading to the about page, a summary of your services leading to your services page, maybe a testimonial thrown in there, and maybe a call to your newsletter. A mistake that I've seen people make is that they don't leave enough space. It's just breathing room, padding, whatever you want to call it, between these different sections. They are literally, the section ends and the content is almost butted up against where the section ends, and then the next section starts, and it just feels really, really constrained. So take a look at your website and see how much space is in between each section, and are you giving enough pause or breathing room when people are going through the site. So for example, if I'm running through and reading your content on your page, and are you completing a thought, letting me take a breath, and then starting the next thought? Or is it kind of just being all squished, running through, and hard to read or even skim through? White space, breathing room, whatever you want to call it, make sure that it is expanded. And then when you are expanding that space, make sure that it is cohesive throughout the rest of the website. Another mistake is not organizing the content. Some people have very little content and others have a ton of content. And organization is key. You want to make sure that you are using headlines, subheadlines, tertiary headlines, paragraphs, that your paragraphs are not super long. It feels like a lot of homework when people see this giant paragraph on the website and they have to read the entire thing, and that they're organized, right? So it's following a format of an outline, if you could think of it that way. Heading, subheading, maybe another heading, maybe a sentence within the paragraph is bolded. Use bullet points to just make it easier to skim through. Because if you make the user, okay, let's do it this way. If you were in high school, your teacher gives you this giant textbook and says you have to read 50 pages of it, and you see the textbook, and it's paragraph upon paragraph, and it's these long paragraphs, tiny text, you don't want to do it. If you're on a website, you want to make sure that it feels light and easy to read, and that's where this organization comes in. So if it can be said in a bullet point, put it in a bullet point. If it can be visually placed in a chart, put it on a chart. If the headlines can give an idea of what each section is about, do that. So you want to make sure that all the text, all the content is super well organized. The next mistake is pretty simple to fix, thankfully. It is not having a favicon or browser icon. And if you are like me, you always have at least 20 tabs open on a browser window. And all you can see are the little icons that are there. And that's how you can see what page you want to click on. So those little icons can be called favicons, browser icons, and you want to make sure that you upload one. This is because, so for example, if you are on Squarespace, you will see that little Squarespace icon up there and people will just immediately know you're on Squarespace. It's just not very professional to look at. If you're on WordPress, depending on the browser, sometimes you see the world, sometimes you see the W of WordPress. So you want to make sure that you are updating that. And pretty much if you have a logo, that can just be an icon from the logo. And it is the easiest thing to forget. I've forgotten about it. You know, clients have forgotten about it, but you want to make sure that when you do notice it, that you go back and update it. Another thing that's often forgotten about is a custom 404 page. So depending on the template or platform that you're using, the 404 page might be nice looking, it might be awkward looking, it might redirect people to the homepage, or it might just be kind of standing there and not really helping people get anywhere. You really want to make sure that it's customized. So a 404 page is an error page. So if you were to type something like robodesigns.com/zzzzz and the error page comes up, that's a 404 page. So it's saying, hey, that page doesn't exist. Why don't you do this thing instead? Let's say you want people to be redirected to either the homepage or your blog if they get to the error page. Then you can create that page, label it as a 404 page, depending on the platform. There's different ways of doing it, and that's the page it's going to show up. So when I click accidentally on a wrong link or type it in the wrong way on the browser, so for example, the robodesigns.com/checklist, if I forgot the T on checklist, then it would go to the error page, and you could say, oh, okay, well, here Yasmin put get back to the homepage, so click on homepage. She also put maybe something about her podcast or her blog. It's almost like a submenu, an idea of how to get to where you were going. And if that page really doesn't exist anymore, maybe there's a better journey for you as a user to get to where you want to go when you see those buttons. Even if it's at least, whoops, this page doesn't exist anymore, click here to get back to the home page. It'll be well branded and cohesive with the rest of the site. The third to last mistake on our list is not having enough contrast between the text and the background copy. I don't know about you, if you remember MySpace age, where a lot of the teen girls had like a black background and like this purple color text. And it was really hard to read because there was not enough contrast between the text color and the background color. So you'll want to, there's a lot of color checkers online that you can use, but you want to use those and put in the color code for your text, the color code for your background. Let's say the background was teal and you are thinking about using white text on it. You can insert that, maybe you're bouncing around between white and black text. You can insert those codes into the color checker and it'll tell you if it fails or passes readability. And this is because you don't want your user, especially if they're visually impaired, to be squinting, to be just annoyed at not being able to easily read the text that is on the page. Best contrast is black text on white, and anything else you kind of want to be careful with. You want to make sure that you know this while you're building out your website. Along the lines of fonts, you want to make sure that they are not too small. This is also something else that I constantly see. Fonts being way too small to read, especially the paragraph text. It just makes it harder for people and they will be less likely to read the copy, which is sad because you probably spent a good chunk of time creating that copy, making sure that it has your brand voice, all of that, and then people will just skip over it and not read it because it's too hard to read because it's so small. Generally for websites, depending on the font, generally I do 16 to maybe 18, 20 pixels. Again, depends totally on the font size. On the note of too small of a font, sometimes you can have too big of a font, but usually the issue with do-it-yourselfers is the too small of a font. The last one is not so much of a mistake for design, but more so for creating your content, especially the written content. Make sure that your copy is not all about you. Make sure that it's not written for you. So if you are, let's say, a developer, you are selling your services to regular people. You're not selling your services to website designers. You're selling your services to regular small business owners. You don't want to use language like, I know this type of development. I know this other thing. And so that's jargon. You don't want to do that. And talking about how awesome you are. You want to speak to them in a way that they would describe their problems. If you are a business coach, you wouldn't say, I'm going to increase your percentage and blah, 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 blah. That's not what the business owner is thinking. They're thinking like, oh my God, I'm not making any money. What can I do? I am in distress. Like my business is gonna fail. So you want to make sure that you're speaking directly to their thoughts. So instead of saying, I'm gonna increase your business, blah, 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 you can say something like, do you feel overwhelmed because your business is not yet making any money and you don't know what the best strategy is to grow your business? So now you're speaking directly to them. You're speaking in their language. You're speaking to the emotional state that they're currently in. And then you want to show them the transformation. So what would it be like if you could take a day off, if you could work less hours and still make more money with your business? Because now you're speaking directly to them. You're not saying the transformation is that I've increased by this much percentage of your business. It's what would it be like if your life was easier? Because that's ultimately what that person might want. And they can sign up for your services. And you don't want to use jargon. If you are a business coach, or you don't want to use words, or a marketing guru, you don't want to use words that the people that you're targeting might not understand, because it's going to confuse people a lot. That is it. We went over 15 mistakes that people typically make on their website when building it out. Let me know what you think in the comments below if you have any questions, and make sure to check out the checklist, roblesdesigns.com/checklist, and make sure to hit subscribe and all those awesome things. You can also follow me and check out some reels at Robles Designs Studio on Instagram. And yeah, with that, I will catch you in the next video.